Hello and welcome to today's video. Today's video is the third video in this series that is focused on fact-based negotiation. In today's video, we are going to learn how to create and use a should-cost model in a step-by-step manner. Let's get started on how to build a should-cost model. Let's first ask the question, what is a should cost? Should cost is a calculated cost based on the direct material, labor, and other resources that go into producing a product or delivering a service. And should cost model is a mathematical model to calculate that cost. If you have to show a should cost model pictorially, this is how it would look like. It would have elements like direct material, direct labor, manufacturing overhead, and general selling and administrative expenses, profit before tax. All these components together make a price. And the top three components, direct material, direct labor, and manufacturing overhead, are collectively called as cost of goods sold. We always focus on cost of goods sold when we are trying to calculate the should cost, because this is the cost that varies over time for a supplier. Whereas over time we want to have a fixed profit and fixed SG&A expenses for the supplier. So the most important component is COGS, and within COGS the direct material, direct labor, and manufacturing overhead. Let's look at a fully developed should cost model sample. There is a lot of information, but let's break it down. So like in previous slide we saw, we had direct material, direct labor, direct overhead, SG&A, profit. These are the five components that make the total sales price. Out of these five, we usually focus on direct material, direct labor, and direct overhead because these are the cost components that vary for the supplier over time, whereas SG&A and profit stay constant. Now let's look at column percentage of sales. This column shows the weight of each of these components that contributes to the sales price. So direct material contributes about 12.9% to the total sales price. Direct labor, on the other hand, contributes 25.8%. And if you sum them up, all these weights, you will get to 100%. We use the indexes for each of these three components, direct material, direct labor, and direct overhead. These indexes are publicly available indexes that can help you track change in cost of each of these components. For direct material and direct labor, in this example we have used one index each, but for direct overheads we have further split it into five subcomponents: freight, depreciation, utilities, rent, and supervisory services. And then each of these subcomponents are individually tracked. In this example, we have weighted each of these subcomponents equally under direct overhead, but this may not be the case in other examples. You are pretty much ready with your should cost model, and after this it's a matter of taking few numbers from the publicly available resources, plugging those in, and calculating your should cost. Let's look at a step-by-step method of developing the should cost model that we saw in our previous slide. Step number one is to calculate the cost of goods sold, SG&A, and profit as a component of sales. So in other words, if you split sales and your sales is 100%, then what percentage of that sales is COGS, what percentage is profit, and what percentage is SG&A. So for this, let's say we are negotiating with supplier called Halliburton. So what you will do is you will go onto the internet or to Halliburton website and pull out its 10K. 10K is the annual report, financial report that a company is required to file every year. You'll go to the income statement section of that financial report and you will find sales numbers there. I've used 2 years of sales number. You can use 2, 3, 4 to get an average sales. Similarly, you determine the SG&A cost and operating profit, and with these numbers, when you plug in, right, you can find the combined on average number of sales, SG&A and profit. And if you subtract SG&A and profit from sales, you get cost of goods sold. Once you have these numbers, based on this, you can split 100% of sales into percentage required for SG&A, percentage of profit, and percentage of COGS. So this is using annual financial report of a supplier. Let's say you are trying to develop a should cost for the industry as a whole and not for a particular supplier. In that case, you have two options. One option, you can take the major suppliers in that industry and do this process by taking the average numbers of each of the suppliers that you have selected. Or you can go to a report called Annual Survey of Manufacturers and use the data that is captured in this survey to calculate COGS and its individual components as a percentage of sales. In this video, I cannot show you the detailed steps of doing this, but I will prepare another video to tell you how to exactly go about extracting data from this website called Annual Survey of Manufacturers and how to use that data to determine COGS, SG&A and profit percentages. Step number 2. In step number 2, you will split COGS into direct material, direct labor and direct overhead. In other words, you have to determine what it be the weight of direct material, direct labor and direct overhead respectively. This you can do in 2 ways. Again, one step you can take is to talk to your suppliers and ask this question: how do you see your COGS split into direct material, direct labor and direct overheads? They can talk to their shop floor and can get you these numbers. And there is another method. Another method is to go to the Annual Survey of Manufacturers. It is basically a survey of all the manufacturing companies in the US, not all, but a sample size of a good sample size of suppliers, manufacturers contribute to this survey. So based on this survey, you can determine the direct material, direct labor and direct overhead percentages. In step 3, you will combine the information you have obtained in step 1, this information in this table, and in information obtained in step 2. You combine these two tables and you get a table like this. How do you go about it? So for direct material, you know that it is 15% of your COGS and your COGS is 86.1% of the sales. So you multiply 86.1% with 15%, that gives you about 12.9% of direct material as a percentage of sales. Similarly, direct labor is 30% of COGS. COGS is 86.1% of sales. So multiply the two numbers, 86.1 times 30%, you get about 25.8% of direct labor as percentage of sales. Similarly, for direct overhead, you have 55% of COGS, 86.1% of COGS is sales. 86.1% of sales is COGS. So you multiply 86.1% times 55%, that gives you 47.4% of direct overhead as percentage of sales. For SG&A, you just bring the number as it is, 1.2%, and profit, the same case, you bring the number as it is, 12.16%, and that gives you this table, and if you sum these percentages up, you will get 100%. In step number 4, take the direct overheads and split it into further subcomponents. So I've split direct overheads into freight, depreciation, utilities, rent and supervisory services. and I weighted them equally. You can choose to discuss with your supplier and assign weights according to what you and your suppliers agree on. Once you have split the direct overheads into components, your should cost model is pretty much complete. Now you have to associate each of these components, direct material, direct labor, and direct overheads, with indexes that you can publicly track. Now I've used these indexes that are available on a website called Bureau of Labor Services, BLS.gov in short, and it is a website that is available in the US. This website has data that is collected from the industry every month, and that data is publicly available for all to use. For example, for direct material, I have used this index WPU 119102. This index is basically a PPI commodity data index for machinery and equipment used in oil and gas field for drilling, surveying, and cementing machinery. So this index is a relevant index because I told you in the beginning that we are developing a should cost model for electric logging services used in oil and gas. Similarly, direct labor can be tracked using this index called CEU 102.131.1230. Now this is basically average weekly earnings of production and non-supervisory employees that are involved in support activities for oil and gas operations. So if you know the industry, if you know the NACE code for the industry, I don't remember the full form of the NACE code, but if you know all that information, then you can figure out, it will take some hidden trial for you to find out which index would be the right index to use. But after you have figured it out, you can plug these indexes here. And once you have the indexes here, then you are pretty much done with this step. In step 5, you have to find the value of each of the indexes at the start and end of the period in which you want to calculate the price change. So for example, if your supplier comes and says that over last 1 year the prices have increased by 80%, and you want to really validate his claim, you will look at the change in the indexes over last 1 year period and plug those in values here, the starting and the ending values, and you will calculate the final figures. Now I've used the start date of March 07 and end date of March 08 because this is in context with the example that I showed in my video 1 and video 2, where we talked about an example where we saved on the cost on the price negotiation with the supplier. When the supplier was asking 27%, we were able to bring the price increment to only 7%. From 27% to 7%, that was a 20% savings thanks to the should cost modeling. So for example, in this index, what I did for this index WPU 119102, I went to bls.gov and pulled out the data. And here it is in this table. So I picked up the value for March 2007 and I picked up the value for March 2008 214. So 204.2 and 214, and I plugged those here. Similarly, I did the same for this index. I went to bls.gov and I pulled out the values from there, 92.343 and 1044.96, and I plugged those here. And it has rounded up a little bit. I can do the same for all other indexes. For this index, going back to 2007 and 2008, this index probably didn't exist at the time, so it is not available. Now this should cost model I developed from afresh. This is not the one I used at the time. I used a slightly different model, and I'm going to talk about that in subsequent videos. Um, I wanted to use this model because this is a full-fledged model that can help demonstrate how do we go about building a realistic should cost model. So once you have determined the start and end values and plug those here, you are pretty much done with this step. Now one thing, how do we find out that values from bls.gov? I'm going to prepare another video, detailed video on BLS website and show you how to exactly navigate that website, how to figure out which index you want to pull. There are multiple ways of doing it, so I will show you different ways of pulling data in that video. In step 6, you take the start and end values of the indexes, all the respective indexes, and you calculate the percentage change in each of these indexes. So for example, this index WPU119102, it had a starting value of 204.2 and an ending value of 214. This translates into 4.8% change over this period from March 07 to March 08. Similarly, for this index, for direct labor, the starting values of 923 and ending value of 1045, the percentage change will come out to be 13.2%. So this is the change over 1 year period for each of these indexes. Now in next step, you will take these changes and you will multiply them with the percentage of sales weight for each of these components, and you will get a weighted percentage change. So 4.8% times 12.9% gives you 0.6%. Similarly, 25.8% of 13.2% is 3.4%. So on and so forth. Once you have these percentages, you sum them up and you will find the total percentage change in the sales price. And this is the price that should change. This is how much it should change over 1 year period as per this should cost model. Step 7. You have the complete should cost model. You have calculated what the cost should be or how much the cost should change over the period in question as per your should cost model. So what do you do with that? So as I said, your supplier could give n number of reasons to escalate the price. So for example, let's say your supplier says, oh, my direct labor has gone up by 13% from March 2007 to 2008, right? And they won't be wrong in saying that. Actually, the indexes are also showing that the price for the direct labor has gone up by 13%. But when they go and ask, oh, since the labor has increased 13%, my services should also increase by 13%. That is not true, because 13% of increase in this index only contributes to 3.4% to the change in the sales price. So this 3.4%, let me repeat this. So this 13.2% change in this labor cost is only contributing to 3.4% increase in the total price. The rest of the components are increasing too. For example, equipment cost is increasing by 0.6%, freight is increasing by 0.4%, so on and so forth. And if you combine all these increases, then you get only 6.2% increase in price. Okay, so that is a very valuable tool that you have now, that you can show this data to your suppliers and say, help me understand how your 13% increase in direct labor cost is contributing to 13% increase. That's not right. It should only increase by 6.2%, even if you include changes in rest of all the components of this should cost model. The other thing to note here in this should cost model when negotiating with the supplier is you want to keep the profit constant and SG&A constant. Just because the labor cost is increasing, just because the freight cost is increasing, doesn't mean that the profit should increase. Doesn't mean that your general and administrative cost, which includes cost for marketing, for sales, for contracting, all those components, there is no, the deal has already been done, the contract has already been signed, the going forward the administrative cost is really minimal. So all that cost, even if it is increasing, is not increasing for your current business. So SG&A and profit should not change, and you want to keep it constant. The third thing to note here is that we used an equal weightage of direct subcomponents of direct overheads. Now you can choose to deploy different percentages in discussion with your supplier, and that would be fine, right? But don't hung up on this on these percentages, because what you will see that the contribution to increase from these indexes is really minimal. So even if your should cost model is not perfect, you don't have all the indexes figured it out, don't stop it from rolling out. In fact, what I recommend is that you don't build the should cost model completely with indexes before you involve your supplier. You want to involve your supplier in discussions and get their inputs before you attach the indexes, because when there are no indexes attached, there are no figures, no values attached, the emotional attachment is really less, and that's when you can have an open discussion with your supplier on what are the components of sales and cost of goods sold, and how those cost of goods sold components should be weighted individually. You can have an open discussion with your suppliers, and this is an activity that a business analyst or whoever is responsible for developing it cannot do it in isolation. It is not a pure analytical science. It is a collaboration of analytical skills plus business information that an analyst can only get working with the subject matter experts, talking to the people out in the field, talking to the people in the from the supplier organizations. So don't consider it as an pure analytical exercise. So once you have done building the should cost model in collaboration with all the subject matter experts and your suppliers, you are pretty much set. Now you can reuse this should cost model year after year by just changing these indexes and calculating how much your price is varying for each of the services rendered under contract from different suppliers. And that becomes a very valuable tool for an organization. So that is a tool that can help you take fact-based negotiation to the next level. So in this video, we have covered how to build a should cost model from scratch. We saw a step-by-step method of doing so. I'm going to post this spreadsheet in a link down in the video. Please feel free to use it. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask those in the comments. So let's review the steps involved in developing a should cost model. In step 1, you take the supplier's annual report and income statement. You figure out the sales, SG&A, profit and COGS, and determine what percentage of sales is SG&A, profit and COGS. You can do the same using a second method, annual survey of manufacturers, which we didn't talk about in detail in this video, but we'll do so in the next video. Step 2, we saw how to split COGS into direct material, direct labor, and direct overhead. Again, you have two methods: talking to your supplier, or you can use the annual survey of manufacturers. Then in step 3, you combine the step 1 information from step 1 and step 2, and you calculate direct material, direct labor, and direct overhead as a percentage of sales. In step 4, you split the direct overheads into further subcomponents, and you attach an index to each of these components: direct material, direct labor, and subcomponents of direct overheads. Once you have that, in step 5 you figure out the starting and the ending values of each of these indexes for which you want to calculate the price change using the should cost model. Then once you have this, in step 6 you calculate the percentage change of each of these index. Then you weight that percentage change with the weight that you have here, and you get a weighted change, and then you sum up these weighted changes to calculate the total change in price. And this is the change in price as per your should cost model that you can take to your supplier and negotiate with your supplier. Thanks for watching this video. All the best to you in calculating and building your own should cost models. If you have any feedbacks, please do leave a message. In this video, we went over a step-by-step guide on how to build a should cost model from scratch. I hope you got some value out of this video. If you did, please don't forget to like, subscribe and share. In the subsequent videos, I am going to show how to navigate two critical websites for building a should cost model. One is BLS.gov. BLS stands for Bureau of Labor Statistics. And second website is census.gov. In this website, you can find annual survey of manufacturers, another critical website for finding data for building your should cost model. So please don't forget to subscribe so that you can get a notification when these videos come out. So until the next video, please stay safe and stay healthy.